Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Raider roster report. This is Raider Sparks. It's Thursday, January 27th, and we're coming up on the college All-Star Bowl season. So it's almost time to start really taking a closer look at some of these prospects. I know we've already had a couple of the bowl games, like the Tropical Bowl, Hula Bowl, things like that have happened, and just wanted to kind of get into some players today that I think we should be watching in the Senior Bowl. Get into some of the Raider needs to improve the roster, but more importantly, as I'm recording this, we might be hiring a new general manager right now, which is great because we got to get our staff in place. We're the last team to have a general manager, and it's kind of troubling because the off season has started. These college bowl games, these kids are preparing, or young men are preparing for the NFL, and they're showcasing themselves. And the Tropical Bowl, for example, might not sound like much, but the Tropical Bowl 2 years ago had 3 players play in the last Super Bowl. So there's players in these games, like the East-West Shrine Bowl that's coming up and the NFLPA Bowl, that might not seem like much, but these players, some of them are going to make NFL rosters, and we need to be there. I know this past Tropical Bowl there were 30 teams in attendance, so 2 are missing, and I suspect maybe the Raiders are one of those teams since we didn't have a staff in place. But we need to get going to get this draft and this team, this roster back to where we're going. And it's kind of tough putting a draft together, not knowing any schemes that we're going to be running, not knowing the players that our staff would like to have, that kind of thing. So it's tough. And of course, we're still pre-free agency, pre-Senior Bowl, pre-workouts, and all of those things. So this is kind of more fun than anything to come on today and talk about some players that I really like in this upcoming draft, and specifically some players that are going to be playing in the upcoming Senior Bowl and a couple of the other bowls, actually. And I'll probably do another video about how some of the players did in like the NFLPA Bowl and the East-West Shrine Bowl, that type of thing. But yeah, the big focus now is going to be on the Senior Bowl. So anyways, and just some talk about the draft in particular. It's interesting. I went to Draft Network and kind of took a look at their rankings. And I kind of just looked. I don't know why I chose 21, but the top 21 guys, only 4 of them are seniors, and actually only 3 of the 24 are going to be in the Senior Bowl. Actually, 5 of the top 21 are seniors. It's kind of weird. Sam Howell's listed as a junior, but he's actually playing in the Senior Bowl, so I'm not sure what that's all about. But regardless, he's playing, which is great. Good to have a close look at him. But yeah, so a lot of the top talent this year are underclassmen, which is interesting. So it's the board. I don't think the first round is going to change a whole lot. There's been a few guys move in and out of the first round, and I'll talk about one of them here in a little bit, that in particular. But for the most part, these juniors, they have their workout, and that's about it. Whereas these seniors are going to play in these final bowl games, are going to really have a chance to increase their stock in the upcoming draft. So there's some guys that can really move up the board if they have a great showing at the Senior Bowl coming up. It's just interesting how some of these play. Like I think last year there were a lot more seniors that played in the Senior Bowl that were the top rated guys, and this year there's a lot of underclassmen that right now are rated ahead of a lot of these seniors. And so what we have coming up is the NFLPA Bowl, which is this Saturday. So something to keep an eye on as they're scouting players. There's definitely some NFL talent that's going to be out there, some depth guys, that type of thing. And there might be a few other surprises. Some guys might make their name, that type of thing. And then the East-West Shrine starts. Practices start the 28th and the game's the 3rd. So actually, yeah, the practice, I guess, starts tomorrow. So we need a general manager like now to be there. And the Senior Bowl, practice start the 31st and the game's on the February 5th. So definitely well into the season here, and so we need to get our guy in place hopefully very quickly. So yeah, we'll take a look at some position groups, examples, stuff like that. And let's get into, just so you know, when I talk about the draft and players I like, again, there's no scheme. We don't know what we're going to be running, how we're going to do it. And, you know, I'm not going to do a mock draft that has us picking Aiden Hutchinson because that's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. Of course, I like Aiden Hutchinson, but it's not going to happen. So what I did just off the start, so you guys all have a feel for the players that I like in this draft and I think are kind of the best in their positions. And so I'll just go through it. So, like, if we played, let's just say, you know, Raider Sparks, you know, here, we're going to give you a brand new team. You pick the 22, 23 guys that you want to start your team. They're yours. Set up your defense, your offense exactly how you'd want it. Who would you pick? Well, this is what I would do if I were the general manager in that situation. So if I was running the same 4-3 that we had under Gus Bradley, I think I would do so defensive end, Trayvon Walker. I'm not going to give stats because it would take way too long. But, you know, just talk about it real quick. He's just in my opinion, the athletic profile on the upside of this guy is just phenomenal. You know, you watch him in the Alabama game. He chased down a guy from the D tackle spot 30 yards down the field. It's just, you know, this is the guy I want. So, yeah, I didn't do the Thibodeau, you know, I don't know how to say his name, from Oregon. But I would take Trayvon Walker all day long. Jordan Davis, I would take him for sure. I think he's a top 10 talent in the draft. It's weird. NFL Network has him as the best fit as a 4-3. I would think he'd be a 3-4 best fit. I think he's going to go in the top 20 before we draft to a 3-4 teams. I think that's where he belongs. And I don't know, as a 4-3 team, if you take a nose tackle in the first round, that would be a serious debate and probably a debate for another time. Josh Pascal would be my 3 technique out of Kentucky. He's one of my favorite players, so just so you know. I know there's a lot of other 3 techs, so we'll get to the 3 techs and the defensive tackles in a little bit. But I love this guy. And look at, he's got big, thick legs. He's fast off the line. For me, it was just a eyesight test, just his jump off the line. And it's cool because he's going to be in the Senior Bowl, so we're going to be able to test the theory if he actually has that explosive first step that I think he has. So that'll be interesting. Let's see what happens. And then Aiden Hutchinson is not playing in the Senior Bowl, nor is Jordan Davis, just so you know. And, yeah, that would be my front 4. Devin Lloyd would be my will linebacker. You know, he's going to be in the Senior Bowl, which is going to be great. He has like video game type numbers this year. Fantastic player. I just want to see if it holds true against the top competition. So that's something I'll be watching. And then Damian Clark, I love this player. He's one of my favorite players as well in this draft. I think he's going to be a phenomenal pro. I would have him at the Mike linebacker. I know a lot of projection is another outside linebacker, but everybody can't play outside linebacker. And at some point, we have to have some inside linebackers. I think he's the guy to do. We'll talk about him more in a little bit. And then Brandon Smith, this is more projection. This is just more athletic upside. We don't use the Sam that much anyways. So he would just be in sub packages and in base, but we would use the base more as a sub package. But just phenomenal. His closing speed on tackle is, I mean, the eyesight test, he's 245 pounds and runs a 4.38. Yeah, coming off of Penn State guy, coming off of Micah Parsons. I wish he'd stay in another year, but I understand why he's coming out. I mean, somebody's going to take that athletic profile, and I would definitely do it for this position. I mean, on tape, when he's about to make the tackle, it's like a lightning. It's like, wow, did I blink? Did I miss it? It's crazy. But anyways, no Senior Bowl for him. He's an underclassman. Sauce Gardner would be one of my cornerbacks for sure, and especially in the zone scheme. You know, I think he'd be phenomenal. Alabama with Jamison Williams chose not to even throw his way. I think that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about Sauce. Derek Stingley. Well, the next 2 guys, you know, I have a problem with DBs and injuries. I know injuries happen, and a lot of people don't concern themselves, but I do because Trayvon and Abrams have been out so much. It's hard for those guys to get better. We can't rely on them in games, and they're always out. So, but his talent, Derek Stingley's talent, is phenomenal, especially his freshman year. He tailed off, but the tail off could be, you know what, I'm going to the NFL. I'm the best one, so I'm going to get my next 2 years in here and try to get through it and just be a dominant pro. The talent, I think, outweighs the injuries. I would go for it in this situation. Same with Kyle Hamilton. Yeah, he had a big injury this year, but I think he's going to bounce back. I'd put him at the free safety. I know he's more of a strong safety or just kind of do it all. The thing I worry about with him is, you know, is he Isaiah Simmons with the Cardinals that had no idea how to play him, or is he actually going to be that guy? So we shall see. But I would definitely have him in my spot. I'd have Nakobe Dean as Jonathan Abrams. He's 6 foot, 225, but can cover. I know he's a linebacker, but I think he's best in space, and I would put him in space in that position with Abram. I think he'd do phenomenal blitzing, that type of thing. So, yeah, that's what I would do with him. And then Dexton Hill would be Dexton Hill would be my nickel. He'd be my Nate Hobbs. I think he's a top 10 talent in the draft as well. So that's kind of where I go from there. And then I would move on to the offensive side. I'd go left tackle Evan Neal, just to the upside. I like Charles Cross a lot, but Evan Neal, I had trouble actually with this pick because of Leatherwood. Unfortunately, Leatherwood we saw at the Senior Bowl. We saw Quincy Roche just eating his lunch. We knew he couldn't play tackle with speed guys. And Evan Neal, I have the same concern with him, but again, with no Senior Bowl to expose it, from what we've seen you just kind of have to go with what you've seen, and what we've seen is a pretty dominant tackle, so I would go there. Zion Johnson at left guard would be my next guy, and he's phenomenal. Go check him out at Boston College. He moves dudes. He's nasty. Definitely would be my left guard. Tyler Linderbaum, I didn't spend much time on this. I just went with the hype train on him. There aren't many centers anyways, and I don't think we're looking for one, so we'll go with him to complete the center spot. Kenyon Green is another one of my favorite players in the draft. Play 4 of the 5 positions, and I don't know if he could play center or not, but phenomenal. I'd have him at right guard, and yeah, enough said. And then Ikamuni out of NC State. I'm not sure how to say his name. I'm sorry if I butchered it, but I know he's a left tackle, but he moves dudes, and he'd be nasty on the right side for us, so that's what I would do. TREY McBride, go with the chalk here. I haven't spent much time on the tight ends, but he'll be at the Senior Bowl, so you can get a good look at him at the Senior Bowl. Traylon Burks, I think he's the best X receiver in the class. We need to win on the outside. That was exposed clearly at the Cincinnati game and pretty much all year. He can do it all from the X spot on the outside. And then Chris Olave, he can play X, but I would like him at the Y. He's got the speed in the class, and so the two combination, Burks and Olave, I don't think you could go wrong if you're building an offensive roster. I think it'd be phenomenal. Kenneth Walker, the third. I just went with the chalk on the running backs. I didn't spend a lot of time on them yet. There are a couple guys that I like at the Senior Bowl that I want to take a look at, and we'll get into those in a little bit. But him and Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M, I think right now are top in class, and we'll see how it goes. So, of course, I haven't given you my quarterback yet because we need to talk about in the context of the Senior Bowl and leading into the quarterback. And I actually wasn't going to spend time at the quarterback position, but in light of what just happened yesterday with Derek Carr and his brother David Carr, bottom line is Carr's not playing for $19 million next year without an extension. So he basically threw it down. It's either you extend, trade me, or I'm not playing. So the Raiders, the new GM, going to have a huge decision to make on our quarterback position. So there's some options, right, with Carr. So what do? Do you play hardball? Say you're playing for 19, and if you sit out, we're just going to sign somebody else. You can do that. You can look to trade him for another top-rated quarterback. Rodgers, Wilson, or Watson. Probably none of those I don't think would happen because not only would we give up Carr, we'd give up draft capital and also a lot of money involved with that. So I just don't see that as something that's going to happen. We could trade Carr, just for draft picks and go with a lesser free agent. But the top of that list is Jameis Winston, and it's not a good-looking list. And so this is a tough spot for the Raiders because this draft, it was hard to find a number one quarterback that I thought was ready. I did, just because if I absolutely had to do it, and if this is what the situation that the Raiders put themselves in, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, just the one positive, if the Raiders wanted to go for just the trade value on Carr and not worry and go into the draft and get whomever they think could get by, or go with a lower, lesser free agent just to get by for a year till next year, that's something they could do and something that a general manager, a new coach might very well do. Carr's going to get quite a few draft picks, whether it's 2 first rounds this year or 1 first rounder this and next, and maybe a second and third. I mean, he's going to garner a lot of draft capital if we choose not to go for a trade with a top-rated quarterback. So it's something that we could consider. And if we did that, I put together some options that I think might work. And again, it was tough, but my number one coming out right now is Sam Howell. and I know that's controversial. There's Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, Carson Strong, Malik Willis, and probably Desmond Ridder, I guess, would be the other one that would be there. But for me, it was Sam Howell, and it's a tough choice. But I mean, if you look at his overall, the 3 years is pretty solid at North Carolina. And the cool thing is that Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell, Carson Strong, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder are all going to be competing at the Senior Bowl. So you're going to see firsthand for yourself who's the best one. But Sam Howell didn't have the prototypical size at 6'1", but a few of these guys are 6'1", that are quarterbacks, but he's 220, so I felt comfortable with the size in this regard. But his best year are 20, 68% completion, 3,500 yards, 30 TDs, 7 picks. He was really good with a big cast around him, so I really like that. And then last year, stepped back a little bit with only 62% completion, still threw for 3,000 yards, less touchdowns, 24 touchdowns, but he ran for 11 touchdowns. One of the things I liked about him this year is his team. He lost a ton of players to the NFL, and he just didn't hang his head or say, screw this or whatever. He said, you know what, I'm going to do what I have to do, and I'm going to just run the ball. He went from 92 rushes in 2020 to 183 rushes in 2021 for 828 yards, 11 touchdowns. He had a long as 62 yards. So he showed his toughness. He showed he can be a mobile quarterback as well. And I give him a lot of credit for doing that. A lot of quarterbacks wouldn't have changed their game like that. But, for the team, he had no choice. He lost so much talent. He had no choice but to just be an athlete at some point and say, you know what, I'm going to get it done. And so I kind of like that about him. Kenny Pickett, I had some reservation. 26 fumbles in his career, but Sam Howell had 19, so that's also a concern. But I just 6'2", so he's not overly tall, only an inch different. 225, about the same weight. I just think Corral has a stronger arm. Kenny Pickett has 1 year. Obviously Sam Burrow did it with that 1 year jump, but I don't know. I just have some reservations about Kenny Pickett, but we'll see at the Senior Bowl. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is the guy to do the thing. But Matt Corral I have concerns with. He's not in the Senior Bowl, but just small, 205, 6'1", a lot of injuries. So he's got a huge arm, probably maybe the best arm of all, although Carson Strong has a strong arm too. He just has injuries too. He's 6'4", 215. He's more prototypical Carson Strong out of Nevada. And we'll see how it goes. Those injuries may not be a concern, but we'll see. And Malik Willis, 6'1", 215, mobile quarterback, but big arm, out of a small school. So we'll see how he does too. A lot of people have him as their number one quarterback. So it's going to be exciting to see. It's just a tough spot that we're in right now because we don't have a true number one coming out. And so, the other option the Raiders could do is, draft or get a placeholder for Carr. If Carr really won't play for the $19 million and sit out, then you go with a lesser option, even a Mariota or something like that, or go with another lesser free agent quarterback and bring in Bailey Zappi. Ideally you'd want Carr to play for his 19 and bring in a guy like Zappi to learn under him or to be the backup, because right now we only have one quarterback on our roster as a quarterback that may not even want to play for us. So we need depth. We need backup quarterbacks too. So even if we brought Bailey Zappi in for backup for a year, had a big year at Western Kentucky, broke a bunch of records, 69% completion, 5,900 yards, a record, 8.7 yard average, so it's low. So he'd be like a West Coast kind of guy, maybe an offense that we would run. Threw for 62 touchdowns with a record, only 11 INTs. So definitely a huge deal, and we're going to see him at the Senior Bowl as well. So keep him in mind. I mean, if even if Carr were to extend and we're comfortable with him, a third-round pick for a guy that shows promise as a backup might not be a bad deal either. But Bailey Zappi could be. I don't know if he'd be ready for day one. So maybe you get a lesser free agent quarterback to bridge it and bring him in. So just a thought. And then a small school guy, Akil Glass, out of Alabama A&M, had a good year. He played at the HBCU Bowl, but he's also going to play at the East-West Shrine Bowl. So somebody to keep an eye on. 62% completion. So he did have some footwork issues, but he threw for 3,500 yards, 36 touchdowns, 7 INTs. So that's good. He does some RPO stuff. He's not a speed guy or a runner. In fact, I think his because he's sacked so many times, I think his yards per rush was actually a negative this year. But he actually does a little bit of that stuff. Not a ton, but some. And I want to see how he's used at the East West Shrine Bowl to see if he does run a little bit more. So keep an eye on him. You know, if Carr does extend and we want to bring in a guy as a backup, you know, this could be an option for us. We do need a backup quarterback at some point. So maybe, you know, a 6th-round pick on Akil here would be a nice option. So, but if you get a chance, check him out at the East West Shrine Bowl. And then another guy, Cole Johnson. He's out of James Madison. He played in the Tropical Bowl. Threw a couple touchdowns there. He looked pretty good in the pocket. You know, more prototypical 6'5", 216. Threw for 3,700 yards. 68% completion. 10-to-1 TD to interception ratio. 41 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. So he rushed for 6 touchdowns. Not really a mobile guy, but he can make off-platform throws. So Akil can make the off-platform throws as well. I should have mentioned that. It's probably the plus over him than Cole. Cole's more of a traditional passer, pocket passer, but can run a little bit. He showed the 6 touchdowns. He's got some toughness to him. And they compared him to the small school Tom Brady, just kind of a tongue-in-cheek little thing there. But, you know, it's kind of a cool little thing about him. But, yeah, check him out in the Tropical Bowl, see what you think. Because we need a backup quarterback. At some point, we have to take one. And, you know, he was compared to Josh McCown. So I think that's fair. You know, just a guy that could be a backup quarterback in the league. So that's not a slider, nothing like that. Just a kind of somebody to take a look at. So, anyways, so on to our biggest needs. So my biggest needs for the team, and I think we were really exposed in the Cincinnati game. You know, I think, you know, obviously now quarterback might be our biggest need. We're not sure. But regardless, wide receiver 1. We need a wide receiver 1 for sure. Actually, we probably need 2 receivers. Cornerback, right tackle, interior D-line, linebacker. And then the rest of the positions, like strong safety, you know, what are we doing with TREY and what are we doing with Abram? Tight end, you know, what are we doing with Waller? And then running back, you know, we only have 2 on our roster. So we're definitely in. If Richard comes back, does it, and then TREY Regis, we don't know what's going on with him either. So those are kind of my things. So we'll just go through the spots here. Really, we have the wide receiver position, and there's some good. I already said who I'd like. Those are wide receivers with Treylon Burks and Chris Olave. I think those are 2 would be my top targets for this coming draft, and obviously they're first rounders, so it's something we have to do. But you know what? If we want to look at a little bit later rounds. One guy to really look at is Jalen Tolbert. He's out of South Alabama, 6'3", 190. He can play the X or the Y position. He's got speed. He had 82 receptions for over 1,400 yards, 18 yards of reception, so 8 touchdowns. He's got the stride. You know, it looks good on film. The stride, the speed, everything looks really good. He does play the X a lot for him, but moves around. You know, he could play the Y, would be good. So if we did get a true number 1 like Adams or Robinson on that plays the X that could win on the boundary, this is a guy that would be great to bring in because he could stretch the field. Not as fast as Ruggs, but he's definitely a deep threat. So that would be a good guy to keep an eye on. Romeo Dobbs, I think I said his name right, out of Nevada. Really like this kid. Can't wait to see him in the Senior Bowl. 80 receptions. 1,100 yards, almost 14 average, and 11 touchdowns. He could win on the boundary. You can see him right here. He's got an NFL body on him already. Very, very good player. I'm looking forward to seeing him play in the Senior Bowl. So keep an eye on him. He's an X. He can win on the outside, which is what we desperately need. But he's also a really good blocker too. So something to keep in mind for our run game as well. So somebody that I'm looking forward to seeing. And then the other guy I'm looking forward to seeing is Reggie Robinson. You know, he's lean. You can see him here, but he's tall. He's fast. He's listed as 6'4". I think he's taller than that. He's 200 pounds. SMU. He had 53 receptions, only 625 yards, 12 average, 6 touchdowns, but he's got speed. So if we wanted a wide receiver Y or a guy that can play a little X, it's just going to be interesting to see how they use him. He's going to be at the Senior Bowl, so we're going to get a chance to see how professional scouts use him. And I'm kind of interested to see where they put him and line him up and how he does, but definitely somebody I'm looking forward to watching at the Senior Bowl. The next position that we definitely need is cornerback, and I like Roger McCreary. I almost put him in my list over Derek Stingley because he's less injury prone and he's got that toughness. He plays with such a toughness, but you know, I couldn't pass up Singletary. But Roger McCreary is a guy that definitely we might be able to draft because he's more likely to be there when we pick. And he's a guy that can really improve his draft stock, because if you look at the top cornerbacks in the draft, you know, a lot of them, or the first couple are Stingley, and a lot of people have Andrew Booth rated, Ahmad Garner. You know, there's a lot of underclassmen here, but there are a lot of people at the Senior Bowl that are going to be there, and Rogers probably the top guy at the Senior Bowl as a cornerback class. So definitely somebody that could be a riser in the draft, because he can really show off his skills. I know he was targeted a ton in the SEC, has some good moments and some not good moments, but just the competitive toughness, I really like him, just the way he competes. But I question his athleticism a little bit. I want to know why he was targeted so much in the SEC, because Sauce Gardner barely got targeted against, and Kobe Bryant's on the other side, a legit cornerback who we'll also see at the Senior Bowl. And you know, Alabama chose Nick Saban chose not to throw at Sauce for a reason, but Roger McCreary is different. He got thrown at a lot. It might be just because they thought they had a mismatch with his athleticism, or I'm not sure. So he's definitely somebody that can rise or fall at the Senior Bowl. So looking forward to him. And then TARIQ Woolen, definitely intriguing prospect at the Senior Bowl, 6'4", 205. I want to see how a 6'4" cornerback can move out of UTSA. Supposedly he has a 4.34 speed, definitely, but he's supposed to be a physical or tackler. His stats don't necessarily show it. You know, he's got 17 solo tackles, 25 total tackles, 5 pass defense, and 1 INT. So the stats aren't really backing up what's kind of shown in the highlights, but definitely want to see it live against the best coverage and see how he does. He's got the body for it. I'm just curious to see how a 6'4" guy does it at the Senior Bowl. And to see where he's played, if he's moved into the slot or if he's tried out safety with that speed. I don't know. It should be interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. So we'll move on now. So the tackle position, you know, obviously we need a right tackle, and some guys who are realistic that we could potentially get. Guy that's been talked about moving inside, and almost all of these tackles, it seems like all the experts are saying, "Oh, we're going to move them to guard." Well, we'll have no tackles. We need tackles, and you know, a lot of teams need tackles, and so hopefully we go with the experienced tackle and get somebody like a Morgan Moses or something like that to help out Leatherwood. Hopefully that's the plan, but if it's not, we're going to have to look at the first 2 rounds to get us starting right tackle. And the other guys, you know, the Charles Crosses, the Kwanu's, the Neals, you know, you could play the Kenyon Greens. Those guys I'm pretty sure be drafted before 22. So, and Denny Kennard may be a second round guy. He might be late first, early second. So I don't know, but some guy, he's definitely a guy I really like. He had a pass blocking grade of 84.3 and a run blocking grade of 91.9. He played 2,223 snaps at right tackle, and he only played 2 snaps at right guard. So, to me, he is a right tackle. He gave up 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, 4 hurries, 7 pressures. So, but just a run mover. He's got some nastiness to him. 6'5", 345. A guy I really like, and he will be at the Senior Bowl. So we'll be able to see where they play him, if they play him at guard or tackle, where the coaches like him. And I hope he gets the reps at the tackle spot, because I definitely want to see him there. But the other guy that's rising up boards, and a guy I saw a little bit from, is Max Mitchell, and he got a Senior Bowl invite as well out of Louisiana. 6'5", 299, so maybe he puts on a little weight, but good, solid athlete. He's got 34-inch arms, 81 wingspan. Just a really solid redshirt junior, and a guy that can move in space, and that outside zone that we were running at the end of the year. I think he'd be really good for it. Could be a really good candidate for us. I think he's going to move up board so once he gets to the Senior Bowl. And just look for him. I'm going to pay close attention to how he does. So next is interior lineman. It's interesting how the draft flows, you know. First of all, I'll back up a little bit about what teams are doing in the NFL. You know, it's kind of 50-50, 4-3, 3-4. A lot of multiple teams. Cincinnati's like a 5-2. So teams that you're seeing a lot of diversity in the way players play. Like there's very few of the tackles that I'll talk about that are just true defensive tackles. Most of the guys play D tackle and edge. And I remember last year's draft class, we had a few guys that would play edge, that bendy type edge, but then there were a few guys that were big enough to kick inside. We were talking about that a lot. The guy that plays edge that kicks inside. Well, we have guys now that are D tackles playing at edge. These guys are like 290, 295 pounds playing edge. That should be D tackles. So it's kind of like reversed, and it's like, teams are starting to go to just different types of fronts. Like Cincinnati plays 3 D tackles, but have 5 rushers, and the guys that are deep in the playoffs. San Francisco is a 4-3. KC is more of a 4-3. The Rams are 3-4, but they went to sort of a 4-3 this year actually. So it's kind of interesting, kind of what's going on. And like I mentioned Cincinnati, but I think these schemes are coming about that. It's more about schemes than players, because we're looking at players that are good at multiple positions. I don't know. I think that's a question you ask your GM and coach. What's your philosophy is? And I'd be interested in the answers. Would you like a player that's good at a lot of positions or great at one position? If you have a bunch of guys that are great at one position, which is cool, but you can't scheme it up as much, move guys around as much. Whereas if you have guys that are really good at lots of positions, you can move around. So I'm not sure what the philosophy is there. San Francisco, I think, is more scheme. I don't think their roster is even that much more better than ours. I think they just have much better schemes than we do. Like Kansas City, I think has just a better roster than we do. There's better, right? So I don't know. I don't know which one's better. It's a good question. Maybe answer that for me. See what you guys think about that. Would you guys want a guy that's good in a lot of positions or great at one position? It's an interesting question. But anyway, so there's some guys that one guy that's interesting to me that I like is DeMarvin Leal. I didn't picture him here because he's dropping down draft boards. Something's going on with DeMarvin because he was so rated so highly, and I really liked him. I still do. There's something going on behind the scenes with him, and for me, it's unfortunate he doesn't get to play in the Senior Bowl. He's only a junior, but I just want to talk about him real quick. At the combine, he just show up there and do every single combine that they throw at him, every single event, and not sit down in it, because he needs to prove that he's in shape. I think that's the conditioning issue. I don't know if he comes in and blows it away, then I think he'll come back up into the first round. But if he sits some drills out or isn't quite as good, he's going to be a second, even. He's dropping hard, and I don't understand why. I know there's a marijuana issue with him, but I don't think that was such a big deal. It could be in Vegas because, if you're having issues already, going to Vegas isn't going to help. But if there's concerns with your conditioning and the type of pro that you're going to be, that's an issue. But anyways, let's take a look at some of the true defensive tackles. And Devontae Wyatt is definitely one of them. I have my eye on him at the Senior Bowl because he's 6'3", 315. He was in that Georgia defense, but I think he's a 3-down guy. He had, I think he had 2.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 39 total tackles last year. But he's overshadowed. I want to see what he does on his own, because I think he could be one of the best defensive tackles in the class, potentially even a first-rounder if he shows out at the Senior Bowl. So let's keep an eye on him. Another guy I really like is Travis Jones out of UConn as a one technique in our defense. Nose tackle, 6'4", 328, 13% body fat. This guy's a beast. 48 tackles. He had 4.5 sacks. Tackles for all 7.5, I believe. What did he have? Tackles for, I'm sorry, I didn't write that down accurately. But nonetheless, definitely gets in the backfield. Has some pass rush ability. Obviously, 4.5 sacks from his position, but definitely double teams are necessary. He definitely takes a double team. So somebody to definitely keep an eye on at the Senior Bowl. Josh Pascal, I already talked about him a little bit. We'll be keeping an eye on him. And Logan Hall, definitely somebody to watch at the Senior Bowl. 6'6", 295, big dude, plays 5 technique, 3 technique, 47 tackles, 24 solo, 13 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. Excuse me. And I'll back up on Josh real quick. I didn't actually give his stats, but 52 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, and 5 sacks for this guy. So that's kind of why I have my eye on him. But Logan Hall also, let's see how he does. A little bit of a linear, more athlete, but I want to see what type of 3 technique he provides. And I know they play him on the edge a lot, or the 5 technique out a little bit more, but let's see how he does on the inside against the talent. But there's a lot of guys to keep an eye on. There's 2 guys that I highlighted for the Raiders that we should probably be looking at. Linebacker-wise, one of my favorite players, Amonde Clark. I think he's going to be a good pro. There's a lot of good linebackers in this class, and actually there's going to be a lot of linebackers to watch at the Senior Bowl. I just really like this guy. 135 tackles, 77 solo, 15 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, interception, 3 pass defense. No, he plays with a certain energy that's unbelievable. And there's some other guys that I'll be keeping an eye on. Jalen Petrie. He's a safety, but I think he's one of the better nickel slot cornerbacks in the draft. Somebody to keep an eye on. 75 tackles, 58 solo. So he's a tackling machine for the safety position. 18.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 2 interceptions. Really good player out of Baylor. He's going to be at the Senior Bowl. Somebody to definitely keep an eye on. Maybe we move Nate Hobbs outside. It's possible. We did it in the preseason. I know he didn't look great at Illinois on the outside. He played safety and nickel, but at the preseason, we did play him on the outside. I think he had an interception or a pass breakup. Looked pretty good. You never know. Jerome Ford is a running back I'm going to keep watching here at the Senior Bowl. 6'1", 215. 1,300 yards, 6-yard average, 19 touchdowns. In receiving game, 21 receptions, 10.5 yards in average. So definitely somebody that I'm going to keep an eye on. I saw a comp for him was Josh Jacobs. I think it would be great. We get a guy that we don't have to change the offense for. Give Jacobs a break and bring a guy like him in. Later round draft pick, I think it would make a lot of sense for the Raiders. So keep an eye on him. Charlie KOLAR, later round draft pick possibly. Tight end out of Iowa State. 6'6", 260, 62 receptions, 756 yards, 12-yard average and 6 touchdowns. He can block as well, so I like the idea of us having 3 tight ends, especially can block. And you saw the difference that it made when, let's see here. Shoot. I drew a blank on his name, but when we had our 3 tight end set, oh yeah, Derek came back. Yeah, when he was in, basically, made a huge difference for us having that 3rd tight end that could come in the box. Sorry, I drew a blank on his name, but big difference for us. So let's keep an eye on him. And then Leon O'Neal, strong safety out of Texas A&M, 6'1", 210, 58 tackles, 38 solo, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 sack, 2 INTs. Who knows what's going on with Abrams? So this is a guy I'm definitely going to keep an eye on at the Senior Bowl. So that's a good strong list of guys to watch at the Senior Bowl. I think I gave about 20 different guys to watch, gave my opinions on this draft, things like that. But we got a lot of work to do. We need to get our GM and our coach in place so we know our system, we know what we're doing, and we need to start recruiting these guys at the Senior Bowl. We missed out on the Tropical Bowl, but we got the East-West Shrine Bowl coming up at the NFLPA Bowl. So, Mark Davis, let's get on it. Let's get going here, build this roster up. And that's all I got, Raider Nation. Please like, subscribe, do all those cool things. Hopefully you stayed for the entire video. Really appreciate it. Exciting time for the Raiders to build the roster. And, yeah, have a good one.